understanding the pelvis.
In this video, you're going to learn the importance of the pelvis for optimal development and find resources to learn more on supporting your child's development. Welcome to Movement Lesson. Find our links in the description below.
The structure of the pelvis is really important for all your movements. So the human pelvis is quite interesting. It's meant to move in all directions because this is the only part of the body where movement can move in all directions. When we are walking, people think that walking is just a line off the pelvis. It's really not true. When your foot steps in, right, and shifts all of these parts within the pelvis move around to take that momentum and give us an evenness. That's where it's got that, in a sense, a gyroscopic function, because a gyroscope is meant to maintain space. With the sacrum, as it moves and does these things, the sacrum has to counter-response the tailbone. And so it's these movements here. You want that kind of movement. What you're needing to do is that sacrum is there to counter-response all those movements. And that's the stability going into the spine. So you have the direction of the movements coming in and out like this, and now the sacrum counter-responses on that. Very similar to the atlas in the first vertebrae. And that's where it keeps our spine erect and we're not wobbling all over the place. When you're working with the pelvis, where it comes into reflexes, so one of the things that I'm presenting right now is a gravitational reflexes. And when you lift your child up like an airplane pose, you're actually for the first time taking the human body and forcing it against gravity. And the sacrum is there to regulate all of that. And that's when, if it works right, your child does airplane. If they have cerebral palsy or if they have genetics, this is when system failure for muscle dynamics really shows up. That you can't, in a sense, push your baby up against gravity. They either get very spastic or very floppy, because the more they get away from gravity, that's why I'm always talking about gravity. The more a child that's impaired gets away from gravity, the more they have problems. Gravity relates us to the ground. And so the earth is moving and we're moving. Very similar to what the pelvis is doing. And so that pelvis takes that movement. When the sacrum doesn't get that input of airplane reflex, right? That's when you also have dynamics. And what are the dynamics? Your child can't walk or take a step backwards. When a child has a problems with movement dynamics, everybody wants them to go forward, walk forward, do all this. They don't think about the backwards. And if you can't take a step back, or physically, you're going to fall down. That back step is very important. That pressure, the push-pull milestone, gets regulated really not through the feet and so forth, but through the sacrum and its sacred's involvement in space. So the sacrum is really important, that is always articulating movement. It is very important that these movements are there. This is how a pelvis works. When I'm coming to sitting, when I'm getting up, all of that. It's really quite pretty. This is not one unit. It doesn't fuse, and it really should do that. But the more your child gets of these movements, especially as in babies, this is where you get optimal development, where you really can get impaired and go quickly from not even typical development to developmental delays, globally delays, really can be seen within this area of movement. The sacrum is a really big regulator of where we are in space, and the pelvis works around that. So that's what we need to work on when we're working on our munchkins. But the sacrum is a really big telltale of how severe your child's going to be, but also where to work on.
To learn more about optimal movements in the pelvis, find our links in the description.